Hello and welcome to MysteryUS. This is Tony Pratt, your host for MysteryUS. And today on our program we have a very interesting, intriguing topic for you, Bigfoot. And my good friend Sherry Molin is a Bigfoot researcher and has been for many years, and she's going to tell us about some experiences we had together and how she got started in all this. Welcome to MysteryUS, Sherry.
Thank you, Tony.
Now, how did you tell us the story of how you first got interested or involved with looking for Bigfoot?
Well, I'd always been interested in that sort of thing, and paranormal sort of things all my life. And Bigfoot, I just never did realize, I never did think Bigfoot was anywhere near Tennessee or the South, and I never had really checked into all that much. But I worked at a little store in Allgood, Tennessee, and I checked people out, and there was this lady came in, and I was always noticing their T-shirts and talking to people, and this lady came in and was in my line, and well, first she asked me, "Sweetheart, do you know where the batteries are?" So I pointed her that direction. Then a couple guys came in, and had like some equipment or something with them, and they were like trying to look and see what batteries fit with what camera or whatever it was they had. And I was just very curious, watching them, and then she came through my line, and I said hello to her, and there wasn't very many people around that day, and so I didn't have many people, behind her, and I noticed her T-shirt, and it said, said something about a Bigfoot researcher, that she was a Bigfoot researcher on there. And I thought, wow.
And that was Mary Green. She's known as the
Mary
Tennessee
Green.
Bigfoot lady, right?
Yes, this was Mary Green. And we got to talking. I said, "I love your T-shirt." And she said, "Oh, yeah, that?" And I said, "Where'd you get one like that? I would love to get me a T-shirt like that." And I told her I liked Bigfoot and all that, and all kinds of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Well, honey, I am a Bigfoot researcher." And I said, "You are? Well, I didn't know there's Bigfoot here in Tennessee or in the South." And she said, "Lord, yes, honey." And and we continued talking. Of course, I had people fixing to come through the line, and we couldn't talk much, but we had really struck up a conversation, seemed to like each other, seemed like she'd be a cool friend. I think she thought the same of me, and she said, "Well, you should go out with us sometime." And I said, yeah, I'd like to do that. So wound up like the next day or two, me and her went out, and she showed me a few places that she did a lot of her research, and I just put some little things together in my bag that I thought would, that I would like to use, like a Geiger counter. I have my dad's Geiger counter, from where he was in the war and everything, World War II. And so I took like a camera and some different things with me. And well, we ran up on, like, she showed me where there had been some cattle killed from, some of the farmers down the way in that area. And so I wanted to go down in there and look. And there were like bones there was like these bones and stuff laying around, and there was like this cedar tree, and it was like pulled over, sort of like it looked like a something had been sleeping under it and made a nest, you know, or something. And so I climbed out there and, you know, and told her she couldn't get down in there. She was beginning to get kind of a little bit feeble. She could still walk, you know, and everything, because right now she's in a wheelchair. And we probably won't get to go out anymore.
And so you had some kind of contact, or you didn't have contact, but you saw some evidence of Bigfoot the very first time you went out.
Yeah. And then, we drove down to where there was these abandoned cabins, and there had been a lot of Bigfoot activity reported down in there, and we stopped, you know, and there was like this creek and a little waterfall coming out from under there, under the road, and going down off over the hillside, because there was a big lake, you know, on down the way. And apparently this was a watering hole, you know, for the Bigfoot. They would come there and get water. There had been a swimming pool, you know, that had been built and it was abandoned, and or a swimming hole. It was actually they'd been dammed up, you know, to make a place for these kids to swim. It used to be a Boy Scout camp, and there were abandoned cabins, you know, and they were all in various disarray, you know, and all. And I didn't go up in there that day, but we stopped, you know, just down below the where the water was and everything, and she, you know, she got out, and she said, I want to see if I can get them to scream or holler, see if we can get a reaction out of them. So she had picked up a big old stick, and she handed it to me, and I thought, well, what am I supposed to do with this? So she let out a big scream, man, and there was one hollered back at her, and I thought, my word, that thing sounded like a monkey or an ape. And I got so excited that, because it's just me and her there, and I decided, she said, go over there and beat a stick on the tree, knock it like about 3 times, you know, and hit it really good, you know, and I thought, So I walked over there and went, bam, that tree, and then these things started beating on trees and stuff and stumps, all up over this hillside and all back over in the woods, you know. You'd hear one here and there and up there, and like they were communicating with each other or something. And then she said, Sherry, won't you try doing a call? And well, I didn't quite know how to do it, but I let out a big scream, you know, tried to sound like, you know, a ape, and I let out 2, 3, you know, and I had never in my life seen anything happen like that before. They were screaming. They started out up over the edge of the water and back up the hillside there, and then off up the mountainside behind us, by the way. And I mean, they sounded like monkeys. It sounded like the Planet of the Apes or something. But they were all over the place, and it was not coyotes, because I know what coyotes sound like, because I was raised out in Oklahoma, and we had them all over the place, and wolves, and
So how much were they beating back on the sticks? Were they like hitting 3 times, or just hitting continually, or? Just
Well,
here and there? Or?
I was, of course, it happened quite fast, you
Yeah.
know. First it started back off over around where the water was,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, one had hit there, and one start knocking up here, and then one over in that way. It's like they were communicating with each other, is what I thought. And when they started doing their calls or whatever it was, they sounded like they were going, ooh, 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 ooh.
Right.
And then screaming their heads off. I can't even begin to explain to you. Oh, it scared the far out of me at first, but because they were all around us. And Mary, she said, Sherry, they're moving in on us. We're gonna have to get out of here, and it's getting dark. We're gonna have to get out of here now. But I was just so excited. So I went to knocking on the trees again and everything. I reckon I got them stirred up because they'd never heard my voice before, I guess, out in there. And man, I got them going again. It was pretty cool. And Mary was adamant. She said, Sherry, get in this truck or I'm gonna run. I'm gonna leave you now.
But was there really anything? Do you really think that you were, you know, in danger at all, or?
I think they were kind of more bluffing.
They're just trying to scare you off.
Talking to each other, like, I think some of them, maybe there may have been some that were separated from the group or something, and maybe that might have been more what it was.
Because usually I don't hear about them being that aggressive, although, I
They
mean,
weren't
if
aggressive.
you hear the sounds,
it wasn't an aggressive
you might think
sound.
it's a sound.
It was just hooting and a howling, and not
Right.
howling, more not like a bear would do.
Yeah, no, it's just a Bigfoot that makes that sound. I mean,
If you could,
and the
you've heard 'em.
vocalizations are kind of like apes, but almost human at the same time.
Oh yeah, there was this one. I'd never heard them be have aggressive sounds.
Now, that was quite a entrance into the world of Bigfoot, and
Yeah.
then later on, I mean, you were with the Bigfoot North American Bigfoot Research Organization, what, BFRO, is that right?
BFRO is what we started out in, and the GCBRO was the one that I was in. I worked with a lot. They were like out of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a lot of our reports.
And they would actually like reimburse your gas money and stuff like that sometimes, wouldn't they? Give you a
Oh yeah.
little assistance there. That's pretty
Well, they would send equipment for us to use,
Mhm.
and you know, we had to be careful with it, of course, and it was quite a wonderful experience, you know, being able to do this all these years.
good. Yeah, and you've had a lot of experiences, and I had met a lady named Teresa that was going to do an interview. You were going to interview her because she had a sighting up in Kingston Springs.
Oh yeah, that's what brought me up
And
there.
but her son had, you know, not wanted her to do an interview like that. You know, he wasn't, you know, real open to that. So she ended up not doing the interview. But we still looked around the area, and we found some older footprints. But then we decided just to go to on down the road about 10 miles to a place called Werewolf Springs. Actually, the specific place, it's Burns, Tennessee.
That's what we intended to.
Yeah, it's Werewolf Springs, Tennessee, and we went there. We went into this old cemetery, and at the back of the cemetery, they got Civil War graves and this kind of thing. And we walked.
Slave graves.
Yeah,
We
slave
found
graves
some
around
slave
the
graves, you know, graves
perimeter
like
of the
around
cemetery.
graves.
So we go back past the edge of the cemetery and see these giant ant hills, and these ants are getting all over. So a couple of our friends decided they'd go back. Janet and Patricia decided they'd go back and make sure our car was okay. And we kept walking, and we could, yeah, something like that. We could hear footsteps even when we stopped walking, and it was fall and there was leaves. And then I had a sighting when we came out to a clearing. that just lasted a couple of seconds of a female reddish-colored Bigfoot, and a couple of weeks or so later, we came back, and it was raining when we got there. And there was a guy that was supposed to come or something, and he had some kind of camera or something, but he didn't show up, and it was raining. So you said, why don't we go to this other side of the cemetery and see what's over here? And we're walking along, and all of a sudden I hear this sound, you know, and we looked at each other like, you know, did you hear that? Did you hear what I heard? And then we keep walking along, we hear the sound again, right? And then in this little thick area of brush, there was the most god-awful sound and vocalization that I've ever heard. It sounded like the Tasmanian Devil on the Looney Tunes.
Oh, that one was mad.
And I tried to chase it down the side of the hill, and
you forgot to tell them about what you did.
yeah, what it was.
At first, whenever we first went out there with Patricia and them stayed at the graveyard, we went out in there, and I knew something was following us, because me and Mary and all of us had that happen before, you know, and I knew what to listen for. And this thing had apparently got in front of us, or it could have been two of them. And there Tony, he saw it, and he said, oh, what was that? He took off in the woods and just running. He took off after it, and I thought, oh no, they're trying to separate us. They're gonna get us. We'll never get out of here. And there I was by myself, and I thought, okay, I'll just wait and see what happens. Finally, he made his way back, and he was so excited, telling me all about that thing.
Yeah, I was hoping I would see it again. You know,
what he saw,
ran ahead to see if I could catch it hiding behind a tree or something, but never did.
Have a camera.
Well, we had a camera, but we didn't get the. It was, I mean, it went 40 yards in 2 seconds. Yeah, it happened so fast on that particular sighting.
I had a video camera, and
3 months later, I had a 5-minute long sighting, but just like I said, a couple of weeks later, when we went down there, and when I did run down the hill after this thing, there was a little creek down at the bottom of the walking trail, and the sand bed in the middle of the creek. It was a dry creek, and there was one footprint in that sand bed. It was about 30 feet across.
The creek beds.
So whatever went across there took one step in the middle, and it's about a 4-foot high bank on each side, so it was pretty good athletic ability. And there was a little bridge there.
Oh, it'd have been a good, if I could have casted that, but it
was a perfect Bigfoot footprint with a gap between the big toe, like an ape. Yeah, like Artie, like Ardipithecus, the new so-called missing link that the scientists are talking about now. But what I believe that Artie is, I believe that's just the bones of a Bigfoot.
Well, a Bigfoot, I believe, is maybe the missing link.
Right, it's all of them.
It's a missing link for all of us.
Right.
Because it's half the hair samples that have been found that have been researched by geneticists. They're more like human than they are ape, so it's kind of like a 3/4 sort of deal.
And you found some hair. How did you find it?
Well, we had a zoologist that was helping us, and we were still in the GCBRO, and they gave us.
Would you call it hair or fur? Was it more like fur or hair?
Well, it was just hair, fur, you know, on there.
It was more coarse than human, or about the same?
Actually, it's kind of soft down inside, but the top, I think maybe it's kind of like a cat. You know, would have. You know how the top hairs are more coarse, or something like that. But anyway, the zoologist, he asked us to collect hair samples from all up now fence line, you know, where well, there was a Bigfoot crossing point there, and they had been seen crossing over the barbed wire fence, and so we just, you know, we got hair samples all up and down through there. I think there was horse hair, raccoon hair, possum hair. That Bigfoot crossing point.
Bigfoot crossing point, yeah.
Yeah, we got to the Bigfoot crossing point where they'd been climbing over the fence. Actually, it's more like one little step and they'll get over it. They probably had young ones that crossed there too, and that's where, well, Mary and her daughter found some hair samples, you know, once before, and so that's where Mary and I decided to look again, and so I got out and found some more, and I was so excited over that, and I thought, oh boy, I've got some Bigfoot hair, and sure enough, that particular batch of hair, that zoologist, he didn't know what it was, and
it was an unknown primate.
Unknown primate, more almost, well, human, but you know, part ape, yeah, part ape maybe.
But closer to human than apes.
Closer to human, but not apes. But it wasn't human.
Do you remember the zoologist's name?
Not right now.
And when was this?
This has been long, about 5 years ago maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I've still got a few of the hair samples.
Right.
And I've got a few hair samples from a known Bigfoot they have classified its hair as actual Sasquatch. And there's a geneticist now, you're probably familiar with it, that has, people started sending her a lot of hair samples. She didn't believe in any of it, anything like that. And she's also like into, what is that, like like on television where they do the, crime scene investigators.
Right.
She does the DNA for stuff
pathology,
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she does like crime
CSI,
scene.
yeah.
CSI, yeah. How come I didn't know that? I love those shows. But she's got to getting hair samples like that, and so she said, well, I'm just curious. I want to see what it is, you know. And she got to getting a lot of them that were, she didn't know what they were. And they, again, have found that they're closer to human than, you know,
than any other primate. Yeah, and Bigfoots are, where are they most prevalent in Tennessee? Is there any particular part of Tennessee that's, because I know they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Even in cities.
I think they're getting more. They're coming into the cities just like the other animals are. You know, our habitat is being destroyed gradually. You know, with more subdivisions coming up and more land is destroyed. Well, you know, for our human consumption or whatever.
Right, we're encroaching on their living space, their habitat, and yeah, and also I think probably a lot of pollution of the underground streams and stuff may be making them have to come up more. Now, speaking of Bigfoot being, you know, have you found them to be more ape-like or more human? Because I know there's different types. Some of their, you know, descriptions are more ape-like faces, and yet some of them, the sightings I've had, are pretty much, they got pronounced faces with big noses, and you know, they're not flat-faced.
Most of the people that have seen them talk about how human-like their features, facial features were.
Mm-hmm.
They have all the hair and everything, but and like their eyes, and you know, like this. A lot of them don't have hair around their cheeks and stuff, and
Right.
eyes and everywhere.
Right. The male that I saw 3 months after that first sighting had, hair like a beard, like a normal male, but he didn't have hair around his cheeks or eyes. And I was staring into his eyes for a good 4 or 5 minutes, and measured his height from where his head was near a limb on the tree he was standing in front of. Flipped a 6-inch ruler over 17 times, which made him at least 8'6".
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty big, but the way they move is so incredible, and they're so elusive. And people, there's a big divide in Bigfoot researchers about whether this is just an unknown primate or there is a paranormal aspect to Bigfoot. I had Dr. Michael Cremo on the show, and we talked about how the Vedas
I'd like to meet
talk
him and
about,
talk.
Bigfoot or ancient ape men with mystic powers that could, speak to humans telepathically, become invisible at will, and, we're just totally elusive.
Our Native Americans have those.
Right.
Like in their myths and stories and that they tell of these creatures, are that they have, that they can appear at will when
Right.
they want to, or disappear, or even, like you say, talk telepathically to them.
Right, and that's the experience I
That's
had.
something you can look into.
Yeah.
Just search your history books and on the internet for look into your Native American legends.
Of course, a lot of people look at that as just
others.
legends or myths, but it's been my experience that that's the reality. And
Mhm.
there's a movie,
Mine too now.
recent movie called Letters from the Big Man, directed by Christopher Munch, and a fellow researcher, a friend of ours who was also on my Paranormality radio program, Kawani Lapsaritis.
Yes, I've heard of him.
Kawani is his, the Native Americans out west gave him that name of Kawani, and it relates to a location actually in the Pacific Northwest. But anyway, Kawani, has been researching for 50 years and lived out in the wilderness areas for, periods of months, that add up to years of his life
Well,
that he's,
There was one we had, that Bigfoot researcher, that Russian man, Igor,
Right.
that came from Russia over here to do research, and he's written several books. Him and his assistant, and we had
He
him
stayed
out.
months and months here, didn't he?
Mhm.
Yeah.
He stayed mostly up at Janice's place, because she had had a lot of Bigfoot activity, and Mary had written
And
a
where's
book.
that at?
It's up in East Tennessee.
Thanks for being my guest on
Thank you,
Mystery
Tom.
Us. That's all for Mystery Us. See you in the next.